Christy said, I'm an active broker. I'm a speaker. I'm a comic book fan, as you guys from this morning know. I'm a traveler, but I'm not an attorney. So we're going to talk today about risk mitigation and risk management, not risk elimination, because attorneys don't ever want you to take risk. I would prefer that you not take risk, but the truth is, I know you're going to have some risk, and we just want to talk about how to manage it.
Nope.
Because no matter
This is what we're
what
going
we
to do.
do, if you close your eyes, it's just not going to go away. You know, social media is here. You've been here for a while, and you know it is just an absolute party out there, right? Over the last 12 years, we have gone from the traditional marketing funnel, and it's not that it's gone away, but certainly it has been challenged by something called permission-based marketing. And this is, you know, old school when we used to, your parents or grandparents may have told you about these things called newspapers that used to be printed where there were ads, classified ads, and we would follow a formula called AIDA, attention, interest, desire, and action to in writing ads. That's a traditional marketing funnel. It's what we also call a bullhorn marketing. But now we're much more accustomed to permission-based marketing. People do things that attract us. We read blogs, we read podcasts, we follow people on TikTok or on YouTube because they're creating content that we in some manner relate to and want to get involved with, and then become very close with, and then end up influencing us in one way or another. So the difference is that in inbound marketing, and many of you try to do this now. I mean, when we post, the difference between inbound and outbound marketing is how we get the connection with the consumer. So if you're posting photos of homes you have for sale, that's old school marketing. That's outbound marketing. This is my product. Please call me if you like it. Inbound marketing would be that person or agent in your market who perhaps writes a blog or posts photos of local restaurants on Instagram or on Twitter, who does reviews of local places on YouTube, or runs a community Facebook page to gather people to them, right? The things that people go to voluntarily, they're inbound marketer. So the example would be, if you belong to an organization and you had, like, you were a Mason and you went to the Masons and you were just a good guy and you were a good member of your local lodge and people knew you and liked you and you volunteered for stuff. And then when they had a real estate need, they used you because you're the realtor they know, right? So that's inbound marketing, as opposed to you live in the same community and you have a bench board, maybe a little billboard, maybe an ad in the local on the local cable channel or in the local Homes magazine. That's outbound marketing. So social media tools are really easy to use, but they're not as easy to use well. I mean, this morning we were talking about houses, and I told you I always told for sale by owners anymore, and really I didn't use the term anymore, but anybody can sell their home privately. Getting the best price and the best terms with lack of litigation, that's what they use realtors for. So anybody can post to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, but getting somebody to actually respond, that's a different trick. And I'm just looking to see if we have our pulse. I'm going to ask you guys a question. You ready? Everybody's got to wake up for this one.
Yep.
How often do you post on social media? We're going to give you time to respond. Daily, weekly, when I think of it, and I just like to watch. And I know some of you just like to watch, so You don't have to pretend. All right. We're at 1, 2, 3, and here we are. So of the people that are on the call, almost 40% post daily. Another 35% post weekly, and 17% when you think of it, 13 when you like to watch. So you can see 7 out of 10 people are posting regularly, right, on some form of schedule. So that's, I think, sort of interesting. Let me give you one other quick question, just so we can see who you are. Where do you share? What social media platforms do you post to? Oh boy, we're looking. I'm TikTok's not getting any love here. Oh wait, I got a little bit of TikTok love. There we go. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here we go. So of the group, 97% of you that responded are on Facebook. Less than 20% of you are on Twitter, and almost half of you are on Instagram. We did get a couple of TikTokers. So I'm going to be looking for some dance moves from somebody, I guess. A little bit of Snapchat, and a little bit of Pinterest. So people like to post in places where they get some interaction. Facebook has become sort of table stakes for engaging socially. And I know that in our business, we're really very anxious to reach buyers. Let me just pull that off. To reach buyers using all the different channels that we can. And everybody's got some kind of strategy. Like, I don't know what your thought processes are, whether you're, we didn't ask about podcasters. Do I have any podcasters here? Now, I'm not seeing it, but okay. Podcasting is not a bad thing. But, you know, people are using Twitter, they're using podcasting, they're using blogging, they're using Facebook, Snapchat. You know, they're using a lot of things, and everybody's got some advice on how to use it. I will say, if you're not comfortable with, if you don't feel you have some social media strategy, and if you go to nar.realtor, there's a lot of resources there. I would look into the ePro course, because the problem is, if you don't have some form of thought process behind what you're posting, you could end up being a social media car wreck. Okay. And you can actually get there 4 different ways. You can get there by falling afoul of regulatory issues. There are practical issues. You can just cost yourself clients. You can have ethical issues, and you can have legal issues. And all of them are expensive, right? So I want you to take a look at this. I want you, if you're using the Realtor logo in your internet marketing, would the potential mistakes be regulatory, legal, ethical, or practical? If you fell afoul of the canned spam law, right? If you're doing email management, email marketing, using social networks, managing your reputation. I mean, what do you guys, you all have your little check marks in your head? Because the truth is, all of them can run afoul of all of those issues. I mean, really, it can be sort of a minefield if you're not careful. And if you don't have some kind of strategy, you know, there are people that just like, I don't care. Everybody has a digital footprint, right? Everybody can see where you've been, what you've done, what you've said, or they can even notice that you're not there. And all of those things are part of your digital footprint and impact your reputation. And some of the things you need to think about. In a study, it was shown that 34% of respondents would unfriend people on Facebook for poor grammar. really you're writing something, you want to think about it. I don't know if you are a person who uses the letter U instead of going old school and typing out YOU. You don't save any money using one letter instead of the three. And my guess is you're not really saving a lot of time. So if you're posting in an area where more than one person might see it, you might want to be thoughtful of it. Almost 40% of people that responded to this survey said they would unfriend people for oversharing. So again, I'm going to use an example, and I don't really care what your politics are. When the Democratic nominee for vice president was announced, an agent who had formerly been with my company posted some really tasteless, misogynistic stuff. Just really unacceptable. Like, I don't care what your politics are, mama raised you better. And I got a message on Facebook from one of my friends, and I went and took a look at it. And I immediately messaged the guy that he was fired, not realizing he actually didn't work for me anymore, but he hadn't changed his profile on Facebook. I almost wanted to hire him so I could refire him, because it was just not a right thing to do. Again, I'm not commenting on whether his issue with that candidate was, like, that wasn't a problem for me. It was how they handled the sharing of that. We had another agent a year or so ago who got on one Sunday morning and just started ranting about how horrible his family was. Nobody needs to hear that, you know, and that's not the place to vent. There are preachers and ministers and rabbis and therapists for all of that stuff, or bartenders. I mean, whatever works for you, but you don't need to take a public position, and people will judge you by those public positions. In this case, I thanked everybody. It was really funny, the response I got. I thanked everybody and outed myself for firing him, even though he didn't work for me. Though I did tell him to change his profile to reflect that. I got 200 and some responses with people just going, yeah, you shouldn't do that. It's not the right thing. People are paying attention. And I only did it because several people had messaged me, and I was lazy. I wanted to send out one message. Half of them would unfriend repeaters. Now, a repeater is somebody who automatically posts things to more than one area, or posts them regularly, automated posting. So you can see in a number of those instances where people are saying the same thing again and again and again. And 64% of them would unfriend people for being misogynist, for being nasty to women. Like, there's no reason to be nasty to anybody online. And with that, let me step back for a moment and talk about the zombie apocalypse. So we are all living this life in the zombie apocalypse right now. And interestingly enough, you know, people maybe go from 0 when they're really calm to 10 when they're really upset. And I think with the stress that we've had as a nation this year, everybody wakes up at 5 now. Like, they're not waking up at 0. They're waking up at 5, and they're reacting very quickly to things. Really take a beat. You know, like, if you ever, I'm sure somebody has told you at some point, if you have to write a really nasty email, write it, save it, and walk away, and then come back before you send it, right? Friends don't let friends text drunk, email angrily, wait and reread it. And if you still feel the same way 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, maybe that's the letter you needed to send. But it's better to take a moment before you put something out there that's really hard to reel back in.
We have a quick question, Bill.
Okay.
Do you feel it is acceptable for agents to brag about their $1 million listings or sales?
Do I think it's appropriate? I think it's
acceptable.
A method. Excuse me? Acceptable.
Same thing.
Well, the Facebook police don't care, so I'm not sure that I would care. It doesn't impress me at all. So for me, if I'm your audience, you're not getting me. I don't know who their audience is. Um, it's not, this is social marketing. And to me, there's nothing social about that. If I had like a really super duper listing and it had like a crazy wine cellar or something, or a gorgeous pool, I might post about that thing that I thought was unusual or interesting, or, maybe it had like some really wonderful kitchen, or, a bathroom with 2 bidets, or just something unusual that I might post about. But I know many really high volume people, luxury people. I don't think you're accomplishing anything by boasting in that manner. But I'm a fan of the humble brag, where you're bragging about something, but you do so in a self-deprecating manner if you're going to do that kind of thing. So it depends on how the post is. If the post is, oh my God, look at the view from this gorgeous hot tub. So happy I got to list it and sit here for a little bit this afternoon. Yeah, maybe that would be okay, because maybe people that follow me are looking for that kind of information. But I wouldn't rush. I find it boring when people post real estate, because I have access to this thing called the MLS. I can look at all the properties I want all the time. So to me, there's nothing. I just like flip through those things. I hope that answered the question. Yeah, maybe. Okay. So in creating a strategy.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was talking and I muted myself.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so people want to know what impresses you on Facebook.
What impresses me?
Yeah. Keep it clean.
Okay. I'm not. This is my friend, Christy. Thank you. Thank you. So well. What impresses me on Facebook are, I love a good joke. I have friends who post some really funny stuff. I like knowing what's going on with people that I care about. Um, Having some connection to their lives, but I'm very fussy about the people that I'm connected with on all of these networks. So Laura Monroe, who works for Inman's, a very good friend of mine. So when I see her stressed out, I get upset, and when I see her happy, then I'm pleased. So that's in terms of impressing me. Other than that, videos of something great that happened with your family. I've gotten to a point, because Facebook has become so politicized, where somebody said you're not posting as much, because usually I travel a lot and I post about my travels and the places I go. So I'm doing less of that right now, because I haven't been on an airplane in a few months. But that's what impresses me. And I belong to a couple of groups. The conversations in those groups impress me as well. So that's what engages me. And that sort of goes to thinking about online and offline. Like, what are you doing and how does it connect with whatever your community is and whatever your goal is, right? Like, who is it you're trying to reach? So when we rewrote the ePro course, one of the things we tried to talk about is niche marketing, right? And niche marketing is not as frou-frou as that sounds. Like, you might like first-time home buyers. You might like empty nesters. You might like investors. You might like flippers. You might like, I have a friend in South Carolina, or in North Carolina rather, who sells horse farms. Whatever your individual target market is, that's who you should be posting things to connect with, right? So, and again, now I'm speaking across platforms, right? So if you want to reach investors, wouldn't it be thoughtful to possibly have a blog about buying and selling and managing property, investment property? If you wanted first-time home buyers, maybe you want to talk about financing and the benefits of home ownership. teach them about, we had a series of posts we sent out as a company where we just defined fee simple deed. You know, it was just something with our logo and like a little, you know, like a sentence or two about what this real estate term meant. I think we did 40 of them and then posted them on Instagram and Facebook over a period of, you know, a couple of months. Because you don't want to do it too often, but it was like, things like that interest me. Oh, that's an interesting thing that I didn't know. So that's cool. And who was that? Until you become identified with whatever that thing is. So my friend Audrey, who does horse farms, like she has 2 horses. She loves to ride. I forget the name of the type of barn she's in. Doesn't matter, that she's converted into a home, but that's her marketplace. So she tends to post about those things. You know, I post about movies and comic books and traveling and the things that interest me because I'm really connecting with people and artificial intelligence and technology and stuff that I like, because that attracts like-minded people. So you look for something called a social object. And a social object is something that you have in common with other people. So, and I'm looking at only one screen, so I'm looking at about half the class. So if you were in the service, raise your hand. Let me see you. I got nobody in the service. I got once, nobody here served, right? Out of my 49 people. I got one person. Thank you. Nobody else? I'm looking around. Okay, so all the rest of you have in common that you did not serve. Vaughn, thank you for your service. But if you've ever noticed, people that have served in one form or another in the military have in common, they've been to some form of boot camp. They have had a sense of service for a period of time, and they will find things in common to talk about. But no matter what their branch of service is. But if you get 3 Marines in a room and 3 people that served in the Army and 3 people that served in the Air Force, they'll gravitate towards the people with whom they have the tightest social object, right? They not only served together, these 9 people, but each of them found other people in the same branch of service. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, no? Okay, let me give you some other social objects. Colleges, football teams, types of sports. All of those are common objects. You guys think of this because when you meet somebody, you ask them questions to find out what you have in common with them, right? As salespeople, you're really good at trying to create those bridges right away. In social, because it's asynchronous, you do something and that you don't get an immediate answer back. You want to know who you're targeting and what kind of content is most interesting to them. And then you have to decide whether how you're going to get that information out to them, right? Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, good. Just trying to make sure you're not falling asleep after lunch. So you have to think about a couple of things. If this is a strategy, then it should be a definite strategy, right? It shouldn't just be random. So the first thing is, how often will you post? I'm going to write a blog post a week. I'm going to post 3 times a week to Facebook. I'm going to be on Twitter every day. I'm going to post to Instagram every day. I mean, Instagram's sort of a, low bar, real easy. Take a picture, put it up, done and over. You have to decide whether you're going to create or curate content. Now, content's a lot of things. Content is writing. Content can be audio, like podcasts. It can be video. And to get the video thing out of the way, we all know what you look like anyway. So don't be hesitant to be on a video because you're afraid you won't look good, because that's actually how you look, right? Like when you walk into a store, that's what the guy sees. So you're not ashamed to walk in the store, do the video. If you really have a hard time with video, how many of you are uncomfortable on video? Let me see your hands. Okay, so I'm going to, this is just for you guys. The rest of you can ignore this. So here's a trick to do video without being in the camera. Okay. You take the phone and you go that way, right? And you stand in front of, how many of you live in a place that's a town or near a town or near a city or near other people or near a park, near a school, near a lake, near a farm? Those are all cool things, right? Like if I came to your house, raise your hand if you would have somewhere interesting you would take me. Okay, those of you that didn't raise your hand, you live in really boring places. Please contact one of the other realtors here and go find a thing. Or you're really unfriendly and I'm crushed. But anyway, wherever you would take a friend from out of town, go take your camera. That's what this thing was, right? Take your camera, and then just in front of the camera, all you have to do is start the camera and say, hi, this is Bill Loveland from Century 21 Advantage Gold, 215-280-4114. I'm really excited to be here with you in front of Bryn Athyn Cathedral. Bryn Athyn was built in the late 19th century, completed in the early 20th century, and it was on the home of the Faulkner family. It wasn't really, but I'm making this up as I go along. If you'd like to know more about Huntington Valley and see more interesting places, please feel free to call me. My name is Bill Loveland, Century 21 Advantage Gold, my phone number. Boom. And I'm out, right? That was not hard. Okay. If you know your name, raise your hand. Okay, good, because the rest of you aren't getting CE. I'm just saying. You know your name, you know your phone number, you know the company you work for, and you know the place you're talking about. And you only need a couple of tidbits about it. You don't have to, you're not like writing a history book, but there's some cool church near you that's 100 years old, I'm sure. There's a nice main street. There's a beautiful little park. There's the high school you went to, or the college you went to, or the elementary school in the area, or the place where all the kids go to make out. Like whatever it is, there's a story about the place you live. A friend of mine, Dale Chumbley, who's I believe the immediate past president of the Washington Association of Realtors, decided on a bet that he was going to do a blog posting a different thing about the place he lived every day for 1 year. So the blog was called 365 Days, and he posted every day. And he lives in a small town just outside of Portland. And he managed to find something to talk about. One time it was like a kissing rock. You don't kiss the rock, you kiss somebody else at the rock, but you get the idea, right? And he wrote like a little blog post about it. He generated a tremendous amount of activity by posting this because people wanted to do things. One was he announced he was going to do it, so people wanted to see him fail, right? That's called schadenfreude. So they were watching him every day to see if he actually made good on his promise. And then once it got started, it just sort of grew a life of its own and really increased the amount of referral business that he got from that. And the other thing you have to think about in the create or curate is you can curate items. You can curate jokes. You can curate inspirational photos or jokes every day. Or you can curate articles about your local business scene, or articles about the local art scene, or articles about local restaurants, or whatever types of things you want to curate. Now, curating, you guys all curate now because you share things on Facebook, right? You share things on LinkedIn. And what you share, I just wanted to tell you, your parents were right. You are judged by the company you keep, right? You need to remember that. So what you share is how you are judged. If you're passionate politically, never mind. I was going to say, then go ahead and share it. But you know what? Really, just stop. Nobody cares. Like, I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you hate the person I like. I don't care if you like the person I hate. That's not going to connect me on social with you and make me want to do business with you. right? And I don't think I'm a big fan for avoiding things that are too polarizing, right? Because it's just not my purpose. You know, when I'm on social, I'd like to educate people. I'm a real big fan of organized real estate and association staff, and I typically post things that allow people to see more of what goes on behind the scenes. You know, like we have a whole bunch we have 111 people in here in a room. I'm sitting in Huntington Valley in Pennsylvania talking to you about something because your staff went out and put together an agenda for you, pivoted from a live course to a virtual course, arranged for the technology. They did a lot. So I like posting those things. And sometimes I will get into discussions about those things. But people that know me know that I'm polite. I'll engage in a political conversation once in a really long time when I'm feeling really weak. You know, I mean, I really try to avoid it because nobody's ever gotten up in the morning and said, you know what, I'm really undecided about the next election or about how I feel the entire country should be run. So I'm just going to go to Facebook, and the person who yells the loudest, I'm just going to adopt their position. Nobody's ever done that ever. So I'm not interested in that. But when I do, I'll be polite. I'll try not to be condescending, though it's really hard sometimes. And I'll get out of the argument as quickly as I can. And I promise before we're done today, I'll teach you how to have an argument without looking like an idiot. And when you do something online, you want to think about what does this do to your brand and reputation? Like, I don't know if you notice, but even now while I'm teaching the class, I'm wearing a collared shirt. I'm wearing a jacket. You have no idea if I have pajama bottoms on, but it doesn't matter. This is the Zoom world. And I'm not questioning you either, right? That we don't need to know. And you see a background that is a professional background. It's actually my physical office at my corporate center, though I'm doing this to you from my home. But I actually thought about what I was going to do. I think about whatever I do online. And I want you guys to think about what you're doing. When you post something, how's your audience going to react? And what is your audience and how have you connected with the audience? So if, for example, you were my friend Audrey in North Carolina and you wanted to hook up with other equestrian people, go look for equestrian groups on Facebook. If you're a golfer, go look for golf groups. How many of you guys went to high school? Just kidding. Just kidding. I know you all went to high school. Just wanted to see if you'd really raise your hands. So does your class have like a Facebook group? No?
Oh.
I graduated with 1,300 people, again, right after the Crusades, right? So that one of the later Crusades, I'm not that old, but when we have a reunion guy, like that one guy who every 5 years puts together the reunion. It's been the same guy since we graduated high school. He created a Facebook group for our high school class. There were hundreds of people in the group because of that social object. So you either have one or you could create one if you wished. And then you'd have a bunch of people that might be willing to do business with you. Certainly you have a social object, something in common that would make sense.
Bill, we have a few questions if you don't mind.
No. Please go ahead.
Okay.
I'm yours.
Okay, here we go.
No,
is it okay?
Nice of you, by the way, to have the wall behind you painted that way. It looks lovely.
You like that?
Very cute. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, the first one is it okay to share a home on Snapchat that is not your listing while you were showing it?
I need more context. So if you're in somebody else's house, whether you're showing it or not, I would ask their permission before I would post anything.
Okay.
Because like you don't know. Like you don't know what you're posting and what they feel bad about or what they feel good about. You know, I mean, I know that agents do that. again, part of it's the context. I mean, what are they, if they're posting their Cabbage Patch cards collection or their Beanie Babies collection, perhaps some bad actor is going to want to break into the house and steal their Beanie Babies or their Cabbage Patch Kid cards, right?
Yeah, you never know. There's
Right. So
weirdos
I
out
would be careful of that.
there. Okay. Okay, the next one is, do you think there's a value in leaving a flyer or a gift at the door in time of COVID
Do
if
I
it's
think
safely packaged?
do I think there's a value to doing that? Depends on what it is. It's kind of random. If you're going to drop something off, for me, my shoes are 10 and a half. I like bright colors. I mean, it's a long ride, but I don't understand. I don't understand the context. If I'm trying to get a listing, if I'm just in the neighborhood, can you give me some more context on that?
I don't know. I could come up with my own question, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe she's trying to say, yeah, if um, well, there's COVID out, so you think it'd be okay to leave a flyer or a gift at somebody's house
Well, I don't think
during
I'd
the?
leave a flyer. I don't think I would leave a flyer. I think, you have digital. I would send things digitally. We don't leave flyers in houses that we have listed right now because we don't want to transmit the virus. In
Okay,
terms of giving somebody a gift, I'm still trying to figure out, what the gift is about.
I'm not really sure either. Maybe.
If you want to give them a gift, I think you should give people a gift. I think it's wonderful if you can, a gift is wonderful. You should give something to everybody every day. Because then you've made somebody happy for sure.
Okay, so another question we have is, what about personal versus real estate Facebook accounts?
Personal, which I'm sorry.
A personal versus real estate Facebook accounts?
Okay, so I'm a person, just in case there was any question.
We questioned it a couple times.
I understand that it's been questioned, but I am a person. I'm a person who happens to be a real estate broker. I'm also a traveler. I'm also a collector. I'm a writer. I mean, we're all of those things. I don't think you separate those things. But if you're going to, it depends on how you want to connect with people. If you're connecting with people from your high school, for example, then be that person. Like, how many of you do business with friends? Let's start. How many of you have friends? Okay, so everybody has a friend. And how many of you would be willing to do business with your friends? So, like, why would you separate them? Like, you're always a realtor. You know what I mean? You're always you. You're always a realtor. And I never understood that separation of church and state. You could have a Facebook page for your business and your personal profile, but I wouldn't segregate them. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook pages, even though my company has like a dozen. But I'm not a huge fan. I like groups better. Groups are more interactive. Groups are more connective. We're about connecting with people. The reason I rewrote the ePro originally, and I actually wrote it as the social media certification before NAR approached me to make it the ePro. We put it together because you guys are really, really good at connecting with people face to face. Our industry is good. We have to make instant friends with people. But we act like idiots when we get behind a keyboard. We start thinking, instead of being the pleasant, genuine, authentic human beings that you actually are, you start trying to be something that you're not. Stop that. You are your brand. Be that person. If you're a mom and you like to bake, be a mom and like to bake. If you're a cat lady or a cat guy, be a cat lady or a cat guy. There are other people that will connect to you because they will relate to whatever it is you're doing there. Does that make sense to you guys? So I think you do you, whatever that thing is. Look, I'm looking at 49 of you right now, and I know in there are people that are my spirit animal because they love dark chocolate. And I know among you, some of you like milk chocolate, and I'm okay with that. And I know that there are probably even one or two people that think white chocolate is actually a thing. But I'm not judging you for any of that. You know what I mean? But you see what I mean? Those are groups, and I would, and frankly, if we were all standing in a group, I'd have the same conversation. So just be you, and be true to whoever you are, so that when people meet you, they're not surprised, right? That you're actually the person they thought you were. That's your brand. That's who you are. Whoever you were, the high school cheerleader, the captain of the football team, the guy who was in the chess club, whatever you were or are, that's who you should be online. And you have to do the right things, because everything you do online is like forever, right? What happens in Vegas now ends up on the internet. So you need to be thoughtful of that stuff. So let's
Okay.
talk about.
We have a couple more questions here, or comments maybe.
I'll take
The
it.
agent says, it is against Facebook policy to advertise a small business on your personal Facebook page. So any talk about real estate needs to be shared from your business page to be compliant with the Real Estate Commission and policies and Facebook policies.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
What if I'm an
I don't
artist?
know. I don't know who's actually monitoring that, because
Probably
they really suck at their job. But that's not. We're not talking about doing business from your profile, from your personal space. If you're in there and you're talking about, gee, I just spent 3 hours trekking through the most beautiful listing I've taken this year, that's not doing business. But it's obliquely saying, A, I'm busy, B, I just got this wonderful listing, C, this listing is really stinking big. You know what I mean? So that's how that whole direct marketing, that outbound marketing, is not what any of this is for.
Okay. Okay, what if I'm an artist and a realtor at the same time? Do I have a separate Instagram account, or do I keep them together?
I don't know. So let me, who asked that? Can we unmute him for a minute?
Sure. I think I can.
Okay, you can. Who?
Hi, it's me.
Oh, there we go.
Where I can't see you, so you have to talk, because you're not on my front screen.
Hi, I'm Slovenka. How are you?
Fine. How are you? What kind of art do you do?
I do oil painting and I do sculpture.
Okay. So you paint and sculpt.
Yes.
And if I were to see you at a gallery where you were displaying your paintings, let's make it an art gallery of that sort, where you were displaying your paintings, would you talk to me about real estate?
No.
No?
No.
Not even if I told you I was looking to move to the neighborhood?
Or maybe I do.
Right. And if we were going through a house together and you were discussing,
I will talk to you about art. Yes, you're right.
Right. So, like, just be you. Like, you don't have to like not. We are not that guy that has a family in Lincoln and a family in Omaha, and he can't tell them about each other.
Okay.
I'm a realtor. I also love to express myself doing oils and sculpting.
Okay, great. Thank you. That answered my question, because I'm talking only about art.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love me some art. I especially the picture of the dogs playing poker.
Okay.
Okay, it says the context was political posts. What would be okay in their personal Facebook account?
I voted today.
Okay, there you go. That was easy enough.
Yeah, that's me. I think everybody should vote. In Philadelphia and Chicago, we say the same thing: vote early, vote often. Right?
Okay, so the next question is, what's your opinion about realtors posting how fast the house sold and easy the market is, or congrats post on new purchases?
You can do anything tastefully. but just do it tastefully. Look, the market is really busy. This really is a historically good time to buy. Interest rates are almost artificially low. I mean, they are crazy, crazy low. Look, I'm considering refinancing my home, not because I need the money, but because interest rates are so low that I feel like I'd feel stupid for not taking money that's almost free. Right? So, I mean, if you're going to talk about things that you would talk about, but don't be broadcasting that stuff, right? Talk about things that are interesting. I have one of the agents in my company he's actually a very funny guy, but he posts conversations that he has with other agents. Now he posts them in an agent only group, but some of them are like really, they're just really silly. So I guess again, it's not what you're doing, it's also how you're doing it. Does that make sense? Yeah, I hope. Okay. So let's talk about the regulations. Now in Nebraska, it's actually fairly light. So the uh, Nebraska Real Estate Commission really says that all of the things that you're restricted, or all of the obligations you have to meet in terms of any advertising, are the same electronically, right? So basically they said, look, we don't really have to give you specific internet instruction. I remember years ago, I was on the Professional Standards Committee at NAR, which is the committee that works on the Code of Ethics and the standards of practice. And we were trying to, this was maybe 2003, 4, something like that. We were trying to come up with detailed changes to the Code of Ethics to reflect websites and the internet and Facebook and all of that. And we had some very, very smart people on the Interpretations and Procedures Advisory Board. And we spent 2 days, and at the end of the second day, we realized exactly what Nebraska is telling you. It's just advertising. So whatever you would do in print, do electronically, right? Now they also tell you, and the underlining in bold here is mine, anywhere you promote properties or services is advertising and has to follow the advertising rules. So I'm sure that means your broker's name, possibly your license number, a method of contacting your supervising broker, that, whatever the rule is on broker versus agent prominence in your state, all of those things have to be met. And they do suggest that you can follow the ARELO guidelines. Now, ARELO is the Association of Real Estate Licensed Law Officials, and they are all the members of all of the regulatory bodies across the United States. So on the Real Estate Commission site, at the very bottom, if you can see on your screen, there's an internet best practices. And there's a couple of pages of guidance that ARELO developed back in 2009. They're pretty common sense stuff. Again, always let people know you're a realtor, let them know who you work for. It's better to tell more than to, like, one of the things that some of the business models in my market are doing that drives me crazy is there will be a team and they will call themselves the so-and-so real estate, but they're not so-and-so real estate. They're whatever that team is under the brokerage business model. But this particular business model promotes teams, and therefore is the individual team people are very focused on trying to promote their individual piece. Do you need a break? Hands up if you need a break. Okay, 10 minutes. We're all good. We will be back at 2:32. Is that good for you guys? See you then. How are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Great, better than we deserve.
Better than you deserve. Oh, I don't know. I think you guys deserve it all.
We all know what we deserve personally.
Right. I'm gonna stop reading my buyer's reply to inspection and get back to our social media stuff. All right. So we were talking about the fact that your real estate commission was smart enough to just grab onto Arello's suggestions. And that's kind of an easy way for you to go. So that's really the only regulatory issues that you have. You have to follow the same guidelines that you would in any other advertising. Again, in terms of brokerage affiliation and prominence of broker's name, et cetera. Ethically, we have a couple of obligations. To begin with, we have the fact that you never take off your realtor hat, right? When we were talking earlier about our artistic realtor, even when you're an artist, you're a realtor. If you're the coach at the local high school, whatever you do still is governed by your actions under the code of ethics. So no matter where you are online, actually, no matter where you are in life, as a realtor, you're obligated to bear in mind the obligations we have from the code. One of them is confidentiality. So when we talked about posting a picture earlier on either Snapchat or Instagram, I forget which, that kind of stuff is fine. But if you're the buyer's agent and your buyers have potential interest in a property, I don't know that I would be promoting that property to the public until they've had the opportunity to act or not act. If I'm the listing agent, I don't know that I want to post pictures without the permission of the client. I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing for my seller client or my buyer client, I'm respecting the confidentiality that I owe them under Article 1, where I'm putting their interests in front of mine. Article 12 is, again, that truth in advertising article we spoke about this morning for those of you that are spending the day doing 2 of these with me. And this is our obligation to be honest and truthful in all of our communications and to present a true picture, right? It means that we have to be honest. We have to ensure that our status as a real estate professional is readily apparent. We always want to let people know who we are and what we do and what our relationship is in that business. We also can't take information from other brokerage websites. And this is something that's actually an old technology that you're probably not going to have much of an interest in now anyway. It also means that you have to be careful to have URLs that are, and the URLs are the web names. The URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. So our company, for example, is Century 21 Advantage Gold. Our website is c21ag.com. Now, if you are not someone who works with me, for example, it would be a violation of the code for you to go out and get C31AG or Century misspelled Advantage Gold, Century 21 or Century 22 to potentially lure unsuspecting and not quite bright consumers who don't know the difference between Century 21 and Century 22, or to take advantage of someone who is mistyping while they're entering a web address. You also cannot present content developed by others in a way that produces a deceptive or misleading result. In other words, you can't plagiarize is one of the things, or you can't, in the earlier example of the photo of somebody else's listing, you can't post that pretending that it's your listing. I had a class that I was teaching in Regina 2 years ago, in which one of the students had attended a seminar in which they suggested that she advertise the listings of other brokers deep linking to them as if they were her own. It's a violation of Article 12 of the code. And CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association, has a code of ethics that is very similar to ours. It was also a violation there. So you have to be careful about what, about what you present. Also, you cannot use keywords or meta tags to detect, drive, or divert traffic. Meta tags are the words that you don't see. You know, when you see a website, it's a representation of a lot of code and a lot of words below it. And when Google is looking for valid returns, it looks at things called meta tags. Meta tags for a company like mine might be Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Century 21, houses, farms, apartments, that kind of thing, right? Those could all be used as meta tags. Linda, you be careful if you're driving. So you want to be careful to only use meta tags that would apply to you. In addition, you can't use content developed by others without permission or attribution to mislead consumers. Again, plagiarism is appearing smarter than you are by using somebody else's work. And that's actually a violation of the code. Article 15 is sort of interesting and another place where you have to be careful. I'm not going to suggest from some of the questions that were asked this morning that we are quick to judge others, but I think all of us are. Article 15 says you won't knowingly or recklessly make statements about misleading statements about someone else. So you might say, for example, Bill has a weird sense of humor. That's just a fact. You know, there's nothing misleading there. But if you said that Bill's really a cheap guy and he charges his sellers some additional fees, and I were to see that and call you and say, you know, that's really not true, you would need to correct that statement, right? You can't, if you don't know, you don't know. But I think you ought to be sparing with your criticism of colleagues anyway, because it doesn't reflect well. Excuse me. So we updated this in 2010 to include the internet, and that included statements in a blog, right? Now, you guys all know what blogs are, right? Blogs are weblogs. They are a stream of publications, usually the most recent at the top to the oldest at the bottom. And in my opinion, this would cover Facebook postings. Right? So if somebody were to post something on your Facebook page, or you were to make a statement on Facebook that was false or misleading about a colleague, you might be in violation of Article 15 of the code. Excuse me. So you want to be careful of that. And you have to be careful. You have to be careful about how you use the term realtor and the realtor mark. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark, the valiant defender of the National Association of Realtors trademark. The real estate world is kind of crazy at times, isn't it? You've got to advertise yourself and your listings to keep up, but you still need to be genuine and honest. Can't go overboard. And on top of all that, there's the internet. Got to keep up with things like Facebook and Twitter. So how do you do it? How do you manage to stand out, but stay authentic and trustworthy? Simple. If you're a member of the National Association of Realtors, you use the mark. The Realtor mark tells everyone around you that you are more than just a real estate licensee. You are special. You are trustworthy. You adhere to a code of ethics that protects clients, the public, and other real estate people. Using the mark tells people that you are committed to ethical practice and high standards of real estate service. Okay, but here's the thing. If all members don't use the mark correctly, no one gets the benefits it provides in delivering that important message. None. Nada. Zip. Zilch. And fact, when members use it incorrectly, that use actually diminishes the unique meaning of the mark and therefore diminishes its value. All right, so how do we go about using it correctly? Well, a few simple rules can help us preserve and promote the meaning and value of the mark for years to come. To start with, be sure you don't use realtor as a generic term for real estate agent. It means member of the National Association of Realtors. Now, since it identifies you as a member, you should use the realtor mark with your name or the name of your firm. Something like John Smith, Realtor, or Sunshine Realty Realtors, or even www.johnsmithrealtor.com. But when it's used with a description or interchangeably as a job title, it can sound like it just refers to anyone in the real estate business, regardless of whether they're a member or not. For example, your hometown realtor, even if you're a member, is incorrect. Remember, realtor means member, so it doesn't make sense to say your hometown member, does it? No matter where we use the term, on a flyer or website or even on Facebook, using it correctly preserves and promotes the value for all of us. These and other rules about style and form may seem inconvenient at times, but all of them are intended to preserve the value of the mark. With a little help from realtors everywhere, all members can continue to enjoy the benefits the mark offers for years to come. To learn more, check out the Realtor trademark page on realtor.org.
Don't you love Mark? I think he's adorable.
Bill, people are having problems hearing you.
They're having trouble. How about now? Better?
How about now, kids? Can you hear it? Can you hear him?
Yeah.
Shake your head. Okay.
Okay. When I was back here, you were not hearing me well?
There we go. Everybody's shaking. I think everybody's good. Everybody's shaking.
Okay, we're all good.
Thumbs up. It's all good.
Good. Okay, I'm just
Oh, it's a video that was hard to hear. I'm sorry. Just a video, just a video, just a video.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I would have turned it up higher.
Okay, and we have one more quick question before you get started, and I
Sure.
apologize. What about you have permission from the listing agent to promote his or her listing to find buyers that you will represent? And also stating that in your post.
That's fine.
Okay?
That's fine. So let me just, so telling the truth, always good. Okay.
Telling the truth's good.
So I like that. Telling the truth, good. Not telling the truth, bad. So mom told you all this stuff. Mom could have taught this course. I'm just saying. All right. So with all of us creating content, we need to start thinking about who owns what, right? What content we're creating, you know, how we're doing it. So even though you never thought you would need to learn about intellectual property, here we are. So intellectual property are the legal rights from anything, whether it is writing, whether it's creating photography, whether it's taking videos, it's all creative and it's therefore all intellectual property. So some of the things you got to think about is when you create stuff at your company, who owns it? So who owns the photos of your listings? And that's it. So we have fractionalized intellectual property in our industry. So I can give you several arguments. I'm a professional photographer. I was hired to take pictures of a house. I own all the pictures. My second argument is I'm the real estate agent and I'm going to take pictures of the house with my phone. I own the pictures. The broker hired the agent who hired the photographer, and they are taking the pictures as part of their work product. Therefore, I own the pictures. The consumer hired the agent who hired the agent, and the broker actually hired the broker who hired the agent who hired the photographer. So I don't care who took the pictures. It's my darn house and it's my darn pictures, right? So all of them have legitimate arguments about that. In my company, we actually have, as part of our independent contractor agreement, all of our agents agree that any intellectual property they create during the time they work with us belongs to the company. as part of our listing contract, the seller agrees that any photos that are taken belong to our company. Now, I really don't want to own all these pictures. I don't covet them at all. But I don't want to argue with anybody about it, because arguing means I got to get an attorney, and getting an attorney means it costs me money. Okay. I mean, the work product argument dates back to things as obscure as Post-its. Right. You guys all know Post-its, right? Okay. You have them in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Just check it. So, you know, the guy who invented Post-its worked for 3M. And Post-its was an accidental invention. I don't know if you're aware of that. 3M was actually trying to develop a reusable adhesive, and they would test it using these small squares of paper. And at one point, one of the guys who was involved in that took a look at this pile of sticky papers and thought,
Another one
that
ready
would
to
be
go.
really cool. Who's arguing with somebody?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, whoever they are. Shh.
That's Christie. That's Christie.
It's Chris. Oh, well, then Christy can do no wrong. So, right.
Sorry.
That's okay. The Christy can do no wrong. That was okay. I wanted to hear that stuff. So this guy during work took a look at this and said, this is a good idea. We can make these pads. People can put these things wherever they want. So how much money do you think he got for that?
Nothing.
Zero. Nada. Zilch. Because it was a product of work created at work, right? So there's an argument that even without the agreement that we use in our company, if your broker hires you as part of the job, says you have to take pictures of your listings, you're creating them for them. And there is, again, an argument that the seller might make. And then, by the way, you give it to your MLS, and they claim copyright to it. And then they publish it to Zillow or Trulia or wherever, and they claim copyright to it. So it's a question. I mean, if you guys blog and you're writing on a company blog, that raises an issue of who owns it. If you're on your own blog, which is what I would suggest if you like to write and you want to write about something that interests you, that might interest your community or people that you have things in common with, I would suggest you use your own just so you own that. So again, the questions are, this is all this mine, ours, and yours. Really, it's all an argument. And if it's not theirs, if you're using somebody else's content, then you may need to get permission. Now, if you're posting content from a .gov site, like your local town or neighborhood, generally those are copyright free and you could use them, but I would still give credit. But you have to remember that just because this is where you guys are, again, we all went to high school, right? Right. We've established that earlier. So you remember when the English teacher talked about may and can, right? And would and could and should. And you sat there and thought, oh my God, I'll never use this in my life. This is incredibly boring. Much like this class today. I can't believe that they're bothering me with this. The fact that you can copy things on the internet does not mean that you may, right? You may if you're allowed, you can if you are able. That's the difference between may and can. So just because it's on the web and your computer can cut and paste it, doesn't mean you have the right to use it. So well, I'll give you an example of that. And even on YouTube, you don't have implied permission to reuse because you don't know whether the person uploading that photo had the right to upload it, right? So there's a lot of ifs with using other people's stuff out there. So you want to look for sites where you have information like House Logic, which is an NAR product. That stuff's there for you guys to use and promote, and it's information about houses, etc. You want to beware of plagiarism. So you guys remember plagiarism from school? Like not you guys, but you knew people who plagiarized, maybe. Took that Encyclopedia Britannica or World Book or Wikipedia and copied the crap out of that for a paper. I'm not saying it was you. And I know that probably there's only one person in Nebraska would do that because you again, all the women are beautiful, the men are handsome, and the children are well behaved. So we know that wouldn't happen, but it happens in some places. And plagiarism, again, is just, it's like lazy theft. It's making yourself appear smarter than you are. And it's with plagiarism, it is certainly a moral issue. And we've made it a violation of the code of ethics, as I said earlier, right, in Article 12, the truth in advertising. But plagiarism is different from copyright infringement, though sometimes you could do both. Sometimes you can take a piece of copyright material and steal it and present it as your own, and then you're in the orange area in the center. But copyright infringement is a legal issue, and plagiarism, though it is a violation of the code, is not legal but a moral issue. So copyright literally means the right to copy, right? And it protects the expression of someone's ideas, their original ideas, the manner in which they tell a story, for example. You know, the telling the story of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. That was a story created by Parson Weems, who was writing a biography of George Washington in the early 19th century. But he protected his original idea, his expression of that idea is protected, the book in which he wrote that. But people have been using the story of Washington and the cherry tree for the intervening 200 years. So you see the difference? I'm looking for a nod or two. I know it's late in the afternoon. There we go. Look at you guys. I'm feeling the love. Okay. So one of the things you need to understand is just creating something is enough to create a copyright. So if somebody writes a blog post, they don't have to register it anywhere. When they've written something original, for example, when I wrote the ePro course, I didn't need to copyright it. The fact that we created it created the copyright, and we then licensed that to NAR. When we did that, because there were, some things we did in the course that were research, we actually had to do plagiarism checks to make sure that we weren't using somebody else's words, even accidentally. So this is really how there are three ways to use copyrighted works. One of them is to have the copyrights itself, right, which allows you to copy it, distribute it, and create derivative works. That's why when the Harry Potter movies were paid, they had to pay J.K. Rowling for the book rights. You can use copyrighted items. You could have just read the Harry Potter books. You could go to the Harry Potter movies. You could watch a baseball game at a stadium. You could borrow a book, or there's fair use, where you can have limited use of copyrighted materials. And the example here is commentary, parody, or limited educational use. Now, this diagram is actually kind of a double copyright whammy. This was created by a guy named Eric J. Heels from a blog post. This was created, it was adapted from Eric J. Heels, and I got permission to use it from the guy that created it. Heels wrote a blog post in which he literally sketched this out to explain copyright to his kids. But it's a great explanation of copyrights. Fair use is an interesting thing. As I said, if it's parody, commentary, or educational use, you can claim fair use. But the reason I have my little gingerbread houses is because by the time you claim fair use, you've actually probably been sued or given a cease and desist order. So that creates a bit of a problem, would you not say? So I'm going to try another video. Hold your hands up if you can hear it this time. Let's see. Yeah, that's not working well.
Can't hear it.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's not playing. I just wanted to double check that. Let's see if that's going to happen a little bit. No. Well, it's a shame. You can actually write this down, a fairly used tale. It was actually a film done by this Media Education Foundation. Never mind. It's going. Just being a little slow. It's still quiet. This is for those of you who remember back in the days of videos. And they're explaining fair use. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
What the heck is
Copy. Right.
what? Hey, what the heck is
Copy. Go right to the right. Right.
It's that law. That's the problem.
You know the law.
that stupid law? Hey, what the heck is
Copy.
Right,
I'll tell you.
Copy.
right is permanently fixed.
The original work.
What?
Permanently fixed
The original work.
in
some form.
That can be
seen,
or
heard.
now listen, this is important.
Only the
Copy.
right
Owner.
has the
Right
to use
there.
work.
It's mine.
How can that be? That's not fair.
It's forbidden to
Use
copy.
right work
Without permission granted.
By the copy.
right.
Owner. And
Anybody who's foolish enough to threaten our copy
Right.
has broken the law.
Aren't we forgetting one teensy-weensy but ever so crucial little tiny detail?
You'd better be able to pay for that.
Copy.
Right?
Permission.
We haven't discussed the subject of payment. You can't get something for nothing, you know.
but I don't have
I'm not asking much. Just a token, really, a trifle.
Hold on. Back up. Are you saying
This is about
Money.
I'm sorry, sir. I don't have any money.
extortion?
I prefer the term capitalist. Hear that sound? It's the sound of your freedom fluttering out the window.
Well, there's the usual things like
I'll borrow this one.
on three. 1, 2.
No, wait. Listen carefully.
You can't.
Copy.
Right.
An idea.
Yes, I can.
You can.
Can't.
But why? Our culture.
Thought that
It would be unwise to
limit the power.
A great idea.
So
We can only
copy.
right.
the form
An idea.
takes.
What? Well, what does that have to do with it?
No. He's got a point. The law says
Copy.
right. Only
Last.
For
fixed amount of
Time.
For example,
copy.
Right.
No so.
Last.
just 14
Yes. Copy.
Right.
No so.
Last.
only 14
Yes.
We know.
You know. I know. I got it. I got the concept.
Our culture.
thought that
That was long enough. For copy.
Right.
Owner.
To
Make money?
From there.
work.
Oh.
After just 14?
Yes, that work fell into the public domain.
So
Anyone could use that
Work.
what the heck is
that public domain.
Anyone?
That public domain is a disgrace to the forces of evil. What are you saying exactly? Work
In
that public domain is free for anyone
to
to use.
Can you do that?
Yes, it's essential because
For culture.
creating
New?
ideas by building earlier works.
So
That public domain is
necessary.
for a living, thriving society. The
Unfortunately.
copy.
Right. Keeps getting longer.
And there seems to be no limitation on
How long?
copy.
Right. Last, it's called a cruel irony.
For example, copy.
Right.
Now.
Last,
A lifetime plus 70 years.
and
For a
company.
copy.
Right. Last, older.
100 years.
so
Copy.
Right. Last, more like
Forever.
Well, it's just, oh my. Delbert, would you please explain how ridiculous this is?
It's totally preposterous.
what the heck is
Fair.
Used.
Sorry, you might mind me again.
what the heck is
There. Used.
This might sound crazy, but they're limitations on copy, right? Is it possible?
Yes.
Copyright may be broken, but it's
Slippery.
you can
Borrow.
a small
Amount.
of a copyright work too.
Gonna let you teach that guy a lesson.
To be believed, there has been a child security breach.
Rick from the net, right here for your very much wish fulfillment.
It is my professional opinion that now is the time.
But how do I know?
If it's fair
Used. There are
certain rules,
that demonstrate
fair
used. Okay, first of all, it's
the nature
oh,
the work.
Borrowed.
second of all,
It's the
amount.
you.
Borrowed.
Oh, and there is one more thing. It has to be something that doesn't change.
The original.
Works value.
In the marketplace.
Pay attention, everyone. This is important. It's like I always say. Fair
Used.
is not safe.
Right.
But what is it? Fair
Used.
is only a legal.
Defensible position.
And this is
It's not fair.
because
This
company is intimidating. Anybody who takes a copy
Right.
work.
If you're gonna threaten me, do it properly.
The point is, if fair
Used.
actually works, then
Movies.
like
This one.
will have legal protection.
And that concludes our broadcast day.
What was that?
I have no idea.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, no? They managed to sort of pull Disney's mustache by making that a tremendous amount of work, but it's used as an as an excellent example of a fair use position. You know, in many instances, they're taking only an individual word from one of these items. Now, I show you this only because I think it's interesting, not because I really want you to get started saying, well, I'm going to take something out of here and it'll be fair use. you don't want to get started. As they pointed out, it's only a legally defensible position, and I don't want you to be sued from something you got out of this class. So everybody, no, don't just know what it is, but be careful in using it. So the question is, how do you find content to share, right? You can create your own, right? Take your own photos, create your own videos, write your own blog posts, your own Facebook posts, or you can ask for permission. For example, I wrote to Bill Soderman, who was the guy who created that fair use diagram. He had previously gone to Eric Heels and asked him for permission, and never a problem. So that's why each class that I use that, I tell the story, because that's how I want to attribute it to Bill, right? So everybody understands copyright uses, and fair use. Now, while you're posting, there are places you can find things to use. Now, for example, this is a search for Santa Claus on Google. But if you go to advanced search, you'll see usage rights. And then you can actually, and I want you to watch how it changes. This is just the search. This is not filtered by a license. And then here, it's labeled for reuse with modifications. So the people that posted these things have allowed us, we can download these pictures, we can mess with them, we can make them bigger, smaller, brighter, darker, whatever we want. On Bing, it's the same thing. This is what it looks like with all of them. This is what it looks like when you go to public domain. See how you have different picture sets? Many of these are more involved, more commercially viable than these, but you'll get what you need if you want to add a blog post or you want to put something on Facebook. These are free to share and use. So again, it changes, right? These are not public domain. Somebody owns them, but they have given you permission. And one of the tools that were created is called Creative Commons. They created a set of 6 licenses, and the licenses go from tell them where you got it, or actually they start at copyright, which is don't touch my stuff, right? And then you have just tell people where you got it. That's attribution. Attribution share alike means tell them where you got it and you continue to share whatever you do with it. Attribution without derivatives means you can use it, but don't mess with it, don't change it. And attribution non-commercial share alike, you can use it, but not for commercial things. I don't want to see it on a t-shirt or a mug that you created and then sold to another person. So all of these go from very loose to very intense. And there are even, so if you go to Flickr, for example, which is, I believe, owned by Yahoo now, but it's a great repository of photos. You can go in and they have Creative Commons licenses. So this photo, for example, you can share or adapt, right? This is attribution, share alike with derivatives. So if you needed a valley or a mountain or a sunset, that's for you. Here's another one. And in this case, you're given permission just to share. So you can share it, but don't mess with it. Share it the way I took it. They also have a portion of the website called the Commons, which are items that are photography archives. Like the New York Public Library has a photography archive where there's free photos to share. The Library of Congress has a photography archive that's free to share. And the Commons are a group of institutions that have said, yeah, whatever we have. So if you wanted like old pictures of Nebraska, that's your place to go. And these are colleges and libraries and repositories of photos and graphics and documents that are in the public domain. But if you need something a little bit more, I use unsplash.com. They have really nice, as a matter of fact, the number of the photos in this morning's presentation came from Unsplash. And Unsplash, the people that are there ask that you attribute them, but that's a bonus. It's not required. So generally when I'm using them, I like to, like this one says photo of the day by Ben Coringard. And they'll tell you what the license are. But they're generally very high quality photos. Everything can be downloaded, commercial or non-commercial. You can't sell the photos, and you don't need permission, but there is attribution. Now, what Unsplash does is it acts as an advertising platform for a company called iStock. So when you search for something and there's not a photo there, you're going to get iStock photos, and then they're going to try to sell you those photos. But if you needed something for a presentation, or you needed something for a post, this is a great place to come. Another similar site is called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S. And again, you just put in what you need. I want a race, I want old locks, whatever it is that you're writing about. You know, if you do blogging or you're writing some short, even short or longer form content, then these are really great resources to add some zip to your blog posts. And again, same thing here. All the photos and videos there are free to use. Attributions not needed, and you may modify them if you wish. Pixabay is a third resource for you. I mean, I don't know, again, the quality of your monitors, but these are really, really sharp, clear, colorful photos, professional quality. But we're all photographers in today's world, right? You know, we go on a trip, we take pictures. Now, Tiffy says she's not a photographer. I got you, Tiffy. Don't worry. I'll take pictures for you. But many of us, you know, we go and we take pictures all the time, right? And some of them come out nice because, as they say, even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while, or a broken clock is right twice a day. Though somebody pointed out that's really not true of digital clocks. With a Pixabay license, same deal. You don't have to attribute. It's free for use. You can make modifications. So what a great thing if you're trying to put together a brochure or a blog for your company, or even to use for a website, right? It's a great place to go for that kind of stuff. So let me tell you about how not to use copyrighted works. So this is a friend of mine. Her name is Valeria Maltoni. She is also known as @Conversation Agent. She's a very, very bright, articulate woman who has been a blogger for many, many years, used to work for Fast Company Writing. And she writes for a living. Now, people that blog a lot generate traffic to their blog sites. And the more traffic they have, they become places where they can sell advertising. And that's how many people monetize their blogs. And Valeria does that. And she's really a good writer. And I get a call from her one day. And she says, do you know so-and-so who's a realtor in New York? Because there's only 1.4 million realtors. And she anticipates, like your friends do, that I know all of them. And I said, no, I don't know them. He worked for Douglas Elliman. That was the company. At the time, it was Prudential Douglas Elliman. And I said, no, but I know the company. As it happens, I don't know him. She said, well, he copied one of my blog posts, didn't link back to it, didn't give me attribution, didn't get permission. And Valeria's a very strong woman. Came here as a, I want to say at 20 or 21, having graduated university there, got her MBA and PhD here. I mean, this is not a woman, you know, it's not a woman you want to mess with. She's a very, very strong woman. And she felt that this is her creative work. This is how she pays some portion of her bills, at least. And she didn't want her stuff used and taken for granted. And I said, I don't know. I said, what have you done? She said, well, I sent him a cease and desist. and he did not. And I've sent a letter out to Prudential. I think Prudential was in California at the time, their franchising arm. I sent a letter out to the franchisor. They've sent a letter to his company. So now there's all these attorneys involved, right? Like, you know, Prudential was a large national franchise. So their attorney's calling the attorney at Douglas Elliman, who is a very large and prestigious company in New York State. And they're all, you know, and they've all got my friend Valeria like tapping her foot, you know, waiting to see what's going to happen with this. And I said, well, you've taken all the steps so far. I'm sure something will happen. And I got curious. So I went to the NERD system, that, you know, National Realtor Database System. And I found the guy she had asked for, and I called him up, right? Because we're all very available, right? I called him up and I said, look, Valeria's a friend of mine. I'm just trying to find out, what were you thinking when she said no? And he like, look, the attorneys. I said, no. I said, I'm not calling you to get you in trouble. I really want to understand what was going through your head when you used her material. And he said, I went to this seminar and they suggested that we take material like this and copy it and do this and that. And I said, that was really bad advice. You know, this was, again, getting social media advice from an educator who wasn't giving him good advice. He said, and I thought because I could copy and paste it, that I was allowed to. Again, may and can, right? He thought because he could, he would be allowed. But of course he was not. And he corrected it. I mean, I don't think she would have had heartburn if he linked back to her, right? If he directed traffic back to her, but he hadn't done that. And if she had called him and asked him, she would have said, no, listen, why don't you take the first paragraph, use that and link back so they can reach more. You'll be driving traffic to my website. It's a win-win. You get to use my material and I get the traffic. So you got to be careful because Valeria could be out there for you. You got to watch her. The other thing you want to be careful of is not using images that belong to someone else. So because I'm an instructor, I create these PowerPoint presentations frequently. I'm always using different graphics. I have to be careful where I get the graphics and know what I'm using. I will always go to my own photos first. After that, I'll go to sources such as the ones you saw. And even though I don't have to, I will generally attribute them. Let me just take you through YouTube real quick. And let's talk about the Canned Spam Act. Do you guys need a break? We need a break. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you, can I give you a 5-minute break or do you need 10? 5 okay?
5's good.
5. 5's good. Take 5 and we'll be right back, okay?
Oh.
Okay. You guys awake? We had a lovely time away. Did you buy me a gift while you were gone?
Who bought you a can of Spam?
Ah, nice. Who doesn't love a can of Spam? Look, and we have 3 versions here. We have turkey Spam light. Who thought there was such a thing as Spam light?
That's disgusting.
That's right. Well, listen, I come from a city that's famous for scrapple, which is a gray meat. Like, gray is not the right color for meat. I'm just saying.
No.
I'm just saying. I'm not a scrapple fan, but it's a thing here. What can I tell you? All right. So are we mostly back, or should we wait a moment or two?
Well, let me look. We're missing about 5 people.
Shall we give them a moment or two, folks? What do you think?
Yeah.
Here we go. They're coming back slowly.
They're coming back slowly. Is that not the case? As we get older, we come back slowly.
It's booted me twice. I don't know if it's booted anybody else.
It did what? I'm sorry?
It kicked me out twice. I don't know if it kicked anybody else out, but I had to like re-log into Zoom, like re-register.
Yeah, Chandler, I think it was something you said. It probably offended the meeting, and the meeting threw you out, and that was that. I don't know what it was, but I'd be careful. Zoom can get very touchy.
Okay, we're looking good.
All right. No, you're looking good, girl. What can I say? What can I say?
And I'm a realtor head.
That's right. That's right. So okay. So let's talk about the can. Yes. So let's talk about the Can Spam Act. So Can Spam actually means something. The Can Spam was one of the early pieces of legislation generally trails technology, right? Like we invent technology, people find nasty things to do with it, and then we create laws to modify those nasty things. So in the early days of the interwebs, in places other than Nebraska, where again, the men are handsome, the women are beautiful, and the kids are well behaved, pornography, the pornography industry found the internet to be a place for really incredible business opportunities. And this law is actually called Controlling the Assault of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing. That's what Can Spam stands for. And what it is, so because we're affected by this, you can consider yourself like part-time pornographers. I'm just saying, not judging. I'm just pointing that out. And so what the Can Spam Act is, the law that establishes rules for commercial real estate. So when you send out that newsletter, when you send out notice of a new listing, when you send out a just sold, when you send out recruiting emails, those are all covered under the Can Spam Act. And it has sort of substantial penalties for noncompliance. $16,000 fine for every single piece of email that violates the act. Now, the rules are relatively simple. So we're going to go through them, and you're going to have the recording will be made available to them later, Christy?
Yes, it will if they want it.
Great. So you can always come back and take a look at this if you wish. But one thing is you must have your physical address in every email you send. The second thing is there's got to be a clear and obvious way to opt out and unsubscribe, and you can't make them hang forever waiting for the unsubscription. It has to be within 10 days. You need to have very specific addresses, the from and to and the reply to. When you get phishing emails, for example, and it says it's from Chrissy Bevington at Nebraska Realtors, that's clear. But a phishing email that says it's coming from Bank of America, and when you hover over it, gives you some unintelligible email, that's not so clear. right? That's why they're bad guys and we're not. So you need to make sure you have a domain name and an email address, excuse me, under the from, to, and reply to. You cannot sell or transfer email addresses to another list when people opt in. You can't use deceptive subject lines that misrepresent the contents of your message. You can't charge a fee for letting people alone. You can't ask for consumer information beyond their email address. And it should be something really simple to unsubscribe. And one of the things you guys should know is that you guys are all familiar with phishing emails, right? You know that those are sent to you by bad actors pretending to be other people, looking for you to click on something so they can download malware or ransomware, or obtain control of your computer. There's all kinds of stuff. One of the things that some of the more sophisticated fishermen were doing were sending you an email and then making the unsubscribe button where they would capture you, right? That was the link that would get control of what you were doing. So the final thing we want to talk, so we've talked about the legal bucket, right? We've talked about the ethical bucket, the ethical bucket, and we've talked about the regulatory bucket. We've talked about branding. So we're sort of in good shape with where we are, right? We understand some of the risks and how to navigate them. Yes. That's it. I want to see my nodding people. Thank you. Or you could say no. Oh, I got a thumbs up from Laura. Thank you very much. So one of the things I want you to think about in terms of the practical is, what do you look like online, right? Do you look like a huckster? Do you look like a neighbor? Do you look like somebody commercial? Do you look like somebody without a clue? Do you look like somebody who is over the top religiously, over the top politically? Do you look like someone with a short temper or a good sense of humor? Do you look like you have no work life, or do you look like you have no personal life? You know, we're all, do you guys like remember disco balls? Like these mirrored balls that were like a thing. Like there's still, one of my most famous cab rides was actually a cab in Austin, Texas, that had a disco ball and lights that pulsated to the sound of whatever music the guy played. Best cab ride I ever had in my life. But we are all those disco balls, right? We're all facets. We are mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles. We are employers and employees. We are entrepreneurs. We are marketers. We are cat lovers or dog lovers. We are fisher people. We are hunters. We are farmers. We are gardeners. We are comic book collectors. We're all kinds of different things, right? Like was it when you met your, when you meet people from work, for example, well, in our business, it's a little bit different. But sometimes, have you ever had that weird thing when people from two sections of your world collide? Has that ever happened to any of you? You know, like I'm a Century 21 guy, so I know people in the Century 21 world. I'm really active at NAR, so I know people active in organized real estate. And I am a local real estate broker, so I know people in my individual market. And sometimes when people, and I'm an international speaker, so I know people from that section. And sometimes when people from those sections meet, they know me in different manners, so they react in different ways, but they're just different facets of that disco ball, right? Just like all of you are. You know, you are a different human being to your mom than you are to your child, than you are to your spouse. If that weren't the case, every child in the world would not have gotten nauseous at the idea of their parents procreating and creating them at some point, right? But mom is mom. Mom is not the hottie that dad married, right? But she was the hottie that dad married, or dad was the hottie that she married. Remember what you look like online. Be thoughtful of which facet of your life you're reflecting in your online activity. And it should be different in different places, right? You should be more formal in LinkedIn than you are on Facebook, and more pithy on Twitter than you are on either of the others. So one of the ways to know that is by listening, right? And you want to monitor this online conversation, right? You want to listen, you want to lurk, you want to learn. How many of you guys drink? Yeah, I'm not buying the hands that aren't going up. How many of you guys go to cocktail parties? I'll ask it that way, keep you safe. Okay. When you go to a cocktail party, we all know, and you don't know a lot of people, and you're walking around and listening. What's the first thing you do? You're like, listen to what people are talking about, right? What's the conversation going on? And then perhaps in not a creepy way, you hang out at the edge of a conversation, right? You lurk a little bit to learn what it is that people have and see what you might add to the conversation, right? It's not just about jumping into the conversation. If people are talking about their kids, it might not be appropriate for you to jump in and talk about your kid. It might be appropriate for you to jump in and talk about their kid. I mean, they'd love to hear that, you know, because what our conversation is. So if somebody talks about their kid at a party, even if you know them, what are they? What do you think they are? Boring? They're just talking about their kids. God, who needs that? So, like, who wants to listen to that, right? But if they talk about your kids, they're fascinating, right? Because you're interested in that. So when you talk about what people are interested in, you get their attention. And that's part of what the listen, lurk, and learn is. You want to know what they're talking about. You want to know who they're listening to, right? Who are the influencers in that group? And let's go to a social object kind of thing. Let's say that you have a lot of hunters near you guys. Yeah, hunting season's a big thing. So let's say that's your interest and you're part of a hunting group on Facebook and you want to know who the influencers are, because to really be an integral part of the group, you want to be accepted by the influencers so that you can become an influencer. You remember all that long ago, 2 hours and 10 minutes ago, when we started by talking about inbound marketing, becoming an influencer was really the key to that. So how do you find out? Well, one of the ways, how many of you guys Google yourselves? You don't have to be embarrassed. You're all adults, right? It's okay to Google yourself, just not in the shower, because you'll ruin your phone. But you Google yourself, you see what information is available about you. When you Google your name, I'll give you an example. When you Google your name, do you show up on the first page? Let me see your hand if you do. You're really lucky. So my friend Ginger Wilcox, who was one of the writers on the ePro when we rewrote it in 2010, has the same name as a porn star. And she is, by the way, a lovely, tall, blonde lady, mom. At the time, she was a single mom. Now she's remarried. So when she found that out to be the case by checking it, she just concentrated on creating so much high quality content that she literally pushed the other person off the first page of Google and pushed them back several pages by creating new and good relevant content about the San Francisco Bay Area, where at the time she worked and was active as a realtor with her team. So they were putting up new blog posts every day. They're putting high quality photos up. Google loves that. And Google then made her the more relevant return, right? Because you guys understand how Google works. Yeah. Somebody searches for something, they try to find the most relevant content to return for that search. And Ginger just made that happen. I don't know how she impacted the other woman's business, but I don't care. So this is a product called Social Mention. This is like a free monitoring program that you could play with if you wished. You can search by the type of thing, by blogs, by video, by bookmarks. You can see in this example, a couple of the Facebook icons. It will tell you, again, type in source, and you can see on the left whether there are positive sentiments or negative sentiments, and the keywords that were used in the posts that contained the search real estate agents in this case. And it gives you a breakdown of how many authors. And, you know, it's interesting. This screenshot I took a year or two ago, and there was just less conversation about the market. You look here and it's real estate agents are at 12% strength. Here they're at 7%. And it talks about the reach, you know, how many people did you reach? What, you know, were these positive or negative comments? And interestingly, currently they were overwhelmingly positive, and back here they were sort of 50-50, positive and negative. And it also lets you know where the posts were and whether, for example, you see YouTube had a lot of stuff on it, because YouTube, really video is great for you guys. You really need to get over your video fear, because I'm telling you, I'm looking at all of you. You're magnificent. You are all magnificent. There's no fear videotaping that, and that's what you really look like. So we know what you look like. There's no hiding from it. So be careful. So all you have to do is go to Google, and if you just Google the term Google Alerts, it will actually return for you an automated Google search. Like I search a few things. I search artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, short sales, because I shared the short sale work group for NAR a number of years ago, and I never shut it off. I have a Google search for my company name. I have a Google search for my personal name. So if somebody writes something or there's a video I've been in, it'll return it to me either daily, weekly, or monthly, you know, as often as I want it, and give me all of the links that feature that one thing. So it's really good for knowing what people are saying about you. They might not be saying, excuse me, they might not be saying anything, and that might be something that you need to be concerned about. Or they might be saying something negative or something positive, in which case you can get on and thank you. Having your company name or your competitor's name on there, also good Google searches. So to learn how to do that, because it's really simple, go to Google and type Google Alerts. And it will actually walk you through the process. The other thing you can do is create a dashboard. Dashboards are listening dashboards, something like this is a TweetDeck. So this shows a search. Each column is a search for something different. The far left is the Tech Edge event. We were going to be in Toronto. The center was a search I did for realtors in Toronto. And then closest to the right, it was a search for my name on Twitter. They're really easy to set up. It's a free dashboard. You can also use Hootsuite. It's a similar dashboard, and that'll connect to your Facebook page as well as your Twitter accounts. And you can have each of your Facebook pages. You can have your personal, and just see what people are saying or talking about, and see every time your name is mentioned. So those are pretty simple and handy items. Do they work for you guys? They work? Okay, TweetDeck and Hootsuite.
Okay, we have a couple questions. Is now a good time or no?
Now is fun. Now is a fine time.
Okay, perfect. First of all, one of my friends says scrapple and porchetta. Yum. I'm from PA too.
Okay, that's lovely.
I gotta improvise a little bit on that one, Bill.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a little bacon or ham.
Okay.
You go with the scrapple. I'm good.
Okay, here we go. All of it sounds horrid to me, but whatever. I don't like colored meats. So
I got you.
I have a question. If someone posts a picture on Facebook and the share button is active, does that mean it's fair game? I posted a pic a few days ago and about 30 people shared it. I took it as a compliment.
Yes. So sharing it is different than using it, right? So remember, if you go back to Valeria, to that example, she would have felt the love if he had been sending traffic to her site, but he was dead-ending her by cutting and pasting it, right? When you share something, you're sharing, well, first of all, within the Facebook ecosystem, you're sharing it within that ecosystem. And at some point, you know, they'll show you that item and your share and somebody else's share, right? You guys have seen that, right? Where there are 3 or 4 people that have shared it. So that's part of that ecosystem. Even when you share things to, linking to things is different than plagiarizing them or using copyrighted material, because the link generally goes back to whomever put that original content up, and they're looking for you to drive traffic to them. So generally that's okay.
Okay, so the next question is why do all these good-looking guys that have names I cannot pronounce want to add me as a friend?
Oh, so the same reason that I get numerous friend requests from beautiful young women with very limited clothing allowances, right? They seem not to be able to afford much. Probably because the enhancement surgery cost them too much. I mean, I don't know. These are people that, no, really, I mean, some of them, like I get these all the time and I look at them and it's like, yeah, I'm not clicking on that.
I know, that was my question. I get 3 or 4 a day. And it's
Right.
like, I can't even pronounce your name. Why would I want to add you as a friend? You know?
But so I love the one where it's a young woman and she's like leaning forward and like, really, that was the photo? Like, and then I'll see one man that I know who's a mutual friend. Right.
Yeah.
And I want to like call him up, and you know that slap button we talked about before? I want to just like hit the slap button on him and go, what were you thinking about? Now I realize that women in the 19 to probably 25-year-old demographic are really looking to connect socially with a man like me, because they got nothing better to do with their time. But I'm going to assume that that's actually a phishing technique, and it's somebody who wants to have me click so that they can steal my identity and then send a message out to everyone in my company or everyone in my group, get personal information on those people. You know, it's really about collecting personal information. You know, data and personal information are really valuable. I just recently, over the last 2 weeks, we had a smishing incident. You've heard of phishing, right? There was also smishing.
Never heard of it.
Smishing is using text to send, to have somebody click on a link. And my company was receiving a text from me. I have a guy that I've known for, I'm going to say 40 years. He's a top salesman with my company. We've been friends for decades. His name is Ron. And he gets a text from me that says, Ronald, I'm in a meeting. Would you go buy some Amazon gift cards for me? Now, first of all, I've never called him Ronald. And so he texted me and he said, I just got this from like a weird phone number and it didn't sound like you. They sent it to, so I had to actually, we use an app called Text Me in our company for group messages. I actually had to text everyone in the company and go, guys, it's cool. I don't need any Amazon gift cards. You don't have, I'm not in a meeting. Like, it was like I was stuck in this meeting, like they had a gun to my head and I couldn't leave. If I wanted to buy Amazon gift cards, I'd use my phone. I'd buy the gift cards. And email them. But
so is that something similar to what Amazon's doing now? They send the text messages that say, we've tried to send this delivery numerous times and you're not home, please call us or whatever.
Right.
Has anybody else ever gotten those?
Don't link to anybody. Don't call anybody. When you get that call from IRS that says if you don't give them a credit card to pay your bill, they're going to seize your. IRS doesn't call anybody, and they don't. They mail you and tell you that they've already seized your account. You know, if it's a real IRS issue. So these are guys like that do. I just did a cybersecurity thing the other day. You know, on just this thing. The other one that I love is the Microsoft Help Desk.
Oh.
Calling from the Microsoft Help Desk, and if you'd let me log onto your computer, I can make it that much faster, bigger, sweeter. Your love life will be improved. Your marriage will be better. Your children will grow inches. Everybody gets more IQ points, and they're just trying to get access to your computer.
Wow.
Right?
So we had a member. She wanted everybody to know. She said, "Please be careful. with those texts because I got them a few times a week. And recently I told them to leave me alone and they told me someone was coming to my house to kill me.
So how'd that work out so far?
Well, she's still here today. She's on the
Good.
class.
So
that's
you're all good.
That's good.
You're all good. Listen,
And then another comment was this smishing happens with our broker all the time. We get this all the time. It's pitiful.
Yeah, so we actually took it outside. You know, this is the first time it's happened to us in many years. But you know how you guys have been stuck home for 6 months? So have the hackers. So they're bored, you know, so they're looking for information. My favorite one, I should do this cybersecurity thing for you one day. My favorite thing was, I got a call. You guys don't mind if I diverge for a minute to tell you a funny story, do you?
No.
Is it okay? Good. That's the boss. So I get a call from a friend of mine. Now, this is a friend in his late 50s, early 60s, an adult male, lives by himself. He says, listen, you got to help me. I really don't know what to do. And he says, I just got an email with my password on it in the subject line. And the email says that this guy tracked me on a pornography site, captured my camera, recorded me, recorded the pornography site. He says, and he wants to be paid in Bitcoin. And I don't know what to do. And I'm just like really freaked out. And I said, what do you care? You're an adult. Well, his mom is still alive, an older woman. He says, I'm just freaked out at this thing. And while he's talking to me, I happen to be in the spam filter of my email, and I see a similar email to me asking, now they were asking him for $2,500, and they were asking me for like $1,000, which made me feel, by the way, really diminished. You know, I mean, I was like I don't know why he was worth 2,500 and I was only worth 1,000. But I said to him, I said, don't worry, it's nonsense. Because without any judgment, that was just something I had never, ever done. So it would have been impossible for that to happen. Now, I've gotten the same email. This was 2 years ago. I've gotten the same email a dozen times. Your identities are all for sale on the dark web. You know, I mean, and if you have a password that's easy to remember for you, it's already been compromised. You know, you need to generate friction in order to have protection online. But like, that's another course. And so don't worry about that stuff. I calmed him down. It was never a problem. But this is the world we live in.
Wow.
So anyway, do we have any more?
No, we sort of, kind of.
Okay.
So she said that she reported it to the police and they said that they wouldn't be able to track them. So.
Right. Yeah. People do stuff online because they have internet muscles, right? Because it's much harder to yell at somebody face to face than it is to yell at them on the phone. And it's much harder to yell at them on the phone than it is to yell at them using your keyboard. And that's what we call internet muscles, right? You got big muscles when you're on the internet. So let's talk about what happens when things go wrong. So I'm going to give you an example of a social media campaign that did not go well. You guys all know Molson, right? Molson Canadian, eh? No? It is a lovely Canadian beer. It is the Budweiser of Canada, or the Coors of Canada, whatever your choice is. So they created a couple of years ago something called the Campus Challenge, where you could win the ultimate.
Carla's paying attention.
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I was, one of the members was sleeping.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
She's awake now.
Sleeping. Let's call them.
She's awake now.
If you got their phone number, I want everybody, give the phone number to everyone in the class. I'd like you all to dial the one person who's sleeping. And okay, so we'll go back to this. So they had this Campus Challenge, right? That sounds like fun. And it was, it was which university was the #1 party school in Canada. right? And they got bashed. Like really, they got killed over it because the perception was that they were encouraging adolescent drinking, that they were creating a permanent testimony to the misjudgments of all these Canadian and American children. It covered large areas where the drinking age was 21, not 18. You know, so it was just not well thought. And photographs of students doing silly things while they're drunk, it's not a great way to get into law school or med school or any graduate school or get a job later on. Because I don't know about you guys, but I Google everybody and check their social before I hire them in this world. You know, I want to see what's what. So the implication was that Molson was soliciting bad action and underage drinking. So they got slammed on social media, and they are a huge company, but they recovered. They went and created a new thing, which was the Molson Canadian Red Leaf Project, and they did it differently, right? So it was, this land is awesome. Let's make it better. Give us your age to log in and become part of it. And what you're going to do is they're going to host 100 park projects across Canada, and you can see them there. And when you help out, you could earn a free ticket to an event in your market, right? So do some good and you'll get some awesome. So now all of a sudden they're like really the best guys, right? I mean, national parks, how do you not love that, right? We're making sure that everybody's the right age because we're getting their birth date coming in. And they're in talking about it, really what they're saying is we're really sorry. We really learned our lesson. We'll be better. We're going to behave ourselves. You had another situation where there was a video leaked by TMZ of Ray Rice and his wife, Janae Palmer. And he's being physical with her in an elevator. I don't know if you remember, this is a couple of years ago. And she started on Twitter, she got a tremendous amount of support from women all over the country using the hashtag why I stayed, right? DiGiorno decided they were going to do a brand jacking. And you guys know DiGiorno, right? It's not pizza, it's DiGiorno. And their tweet was hashtag why I stayed, you had pizza. Now this is this is women being supportive of the victim of domestic violence using this hashtag, and all of a sudden it's not delivery, it's disaster, right? It's really a thing. And they immediately apologized and said, oh, a million apologies, didn't read what the hashtag was about before posting. So, this is an example of what my first broker would call a ready, fire, aim, right? It's supposed to be ready, aim, fire, not ready, fire, aim. So you guys think first before you post something, bearing in mind that there are some people online that have something to say, like they have an idea, even if they don't have a clue. So you don't want to always rise to the event. You want to make sure that even if somebody's saying something nasty about your neighborhood, your company, your broker, you want to respond in a really thoughtful manner. So I'm going to teach you how to win every fight you're ever in on the internet. And sometimes winning is just having them go away. But here's what you got to do, real simple. Number one, don't get defensive. Listen to the idea of the other party. Recognize what they're saying. You've all heard the feel, felt, found sales technique. Gee, Mr. Buyer, I understand how you feel about the price. Many other buyers I've worked with have felt the same way. but what they found was, right? I understand how you feel. I'm hearing you. Others have felt the same way. You're not alone. And what they found was the information that you need to go in. But if somebody picks a fight with you, the first thing you ought to decide with is, are you going to engage them or ignore them? Years ago, I had a former agent of mine, for some reason, get really aggressive about the company on a social channel. And I was going to respond to him because he had actually been treated very well by the company. He was, he really left the business a short time after this. And I took a look and he had like 40 people following him. So I had a couple of thousand. So if I got into an argument with him, all of a sudden the argument has a much, much bigger audience, right? So did you guys ever see the HBO show Boardwalk Empire? Yeah, let me see your hands if you saw Boardwalk. Those of you that haven't, that's your next binge watch opportunity. It's a story about Atlantic City and during Prohibition. It's a really good show. And in there are two gangsters talking. And one guy asks the other guy why he didn't kill someone for insulting him. And the other guy said, you know, not every insult deserves a response. So think about that before you decide whether a fight is worth having at all. Secondly, be transparent and be authentic. Now, transparency online means being open, not having a hidden agenda, making sure that people know who you are, what you're doing, what you're saying, and be authentic about it, right? I own a number of properties in the city. We had a very bad tenant in a property, and we had somebody who got very vocal about how we were terrible landlords and what we were doing. And I just went online and I said, look, we're not aware of the problem. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I'm more than willing to address that. Here's the number of my office. I'm available tomorrow between 9 in the morning and 5 in the evening. The only thing I will not do is I won't have a conversation with somebody who doesn't identify themselves, but anyone else is willing to call. The next day we didn't hear anything, but there was more online, and I went back in and I said, look, I was in the office from 9 to 5 today. I was hoping to have a call with you so we could resolve this. I haven't heard anything. I assume either you're not interested or the information you're providing is inaccurate. I will be again available tomorrow between 9 and 5. Here's the number. I mean, like anybody in the thread could have called me. It didn't matter. I didn't care. But I was authentic about my willingness to resolve the problem if there was an issue. And it sort of smooths things down. The other thing that's important is you may want to choose your battleground. The fact that they started a fight with you on Twitter doesn't mean you have to respond there. Years ago, when I was first writing the ePro course, I got into an argument with a guy named Mark Davidson, who's a brilliant guy. He's a marketer. He owns a company called 1000 Watt. And Mark had made the statement that you can't teach social media. And, I got on and I said, look, I have a cousin who's a neurologist. They taught him to take out a human being's brain and put it back in without killing him. If they can teach him how to do that, I can teach somebody how to use Twitter. And we went back and forth for hours. And a friend of mine sent me a direct message on Twitter and said, why don't you just call him? Because Mark's a really stubborn and articulate guy, and I'm a really stubborn and articulate guy, and we're just going back and forth, So I picked up the phone later that evening and I called Mark. We spent over an hour on the phone. We became very friendly, and now, 10 years later, we're still friends, and we're face-to-face friends. Because of that, because we took it off the one battleground and went to another. Or perhaps you want to take it to a battleground where, Twitter, for example, has a really small bandwidth. Maybe you want to go somewhere where you can have a larger response back and forth. Don't respond in anger, right? You don't need passion. Nobody nobody wins an argument by increasing the volume of the argument, right? I mean, you learned when you were a kid yelling at your parents didn't mean you won the argument. You might have been louder than they were, but they were still your parents. So respond with some thought. Take a minute. Don't respond in anger. Take a minute to calm down. Think about their perspective. Try to look at it from their point of view. Try to address the issues, not the bad problems. If you need to, and it's in a public social forum, rally the troops. Have other people engage in the conversation. There have been times when there were attacks on NAR or on individuals that I know in the industry. I was happy to go in and say, listen, that's a good person. That's a person who's doing the right thing. Here's examples of the right things they're doing. Here's why I disagree with whatever, however you're typifying the problem. We talked about clear cooperation this morning. There was a lot of furor in our marketplace because we were very early adopters of that. And I just went in as an individual and said, no, calm down. It's okay. It's not the problem you think is a problem is not the problem. Let's talk about those issues and see what they are. The other thing is don't make it personal. If somebody says you charge too much in your company, don't say, well, not only do we not charge too much, but you're fat. That's an ad hominem attack, a personal attack. It's not one of the things that distresses me politically about the country right now is that political differences become personal attacks. Oh, he's a dope. He's asleep. She's this, she's that. Like we don't need that. That doesn't, attacks on an individual don't make your argument more convincing. One of the frustrations that I have with some of the conversations on social these days are someone will take a position and the other person will attack the individual instead of making their case for the other position. We are salespeople. We professionally take positions on behalf of our clients and try to make them palatable to the person on the other side. So those are the skills that you can use online. And the other thing is avoid opinion and stick with the facts, right? Don't, my partner and I, partner I buy real estate with, have different political views. I mean, we agree on many things, but he likes one party, I like the other party. When we talk, I won't argue if I don't have facts. Like if I don't know the facts, I won't argue the facts, even if I think his position is wrong. Make sure that you're factual. And in today's world on social media, that means that you need to check whether the information you saw in a post is actually real. There was an article today in the New York Times that Facebook just found 116 troll farms on Facebook that they're shutting down that are a foreign government's attempt to manipulate sentiment in the United States towards one candidate or another. It's just factual. They're doing that. And we, in order to be thoughtful, we need to be really careful to fact check everything everyone says. Even if it's your guy or your woman making the statement. President Nixon had a great saying that I use all the time: trust, but verify, right? You can believe your guy, but verify. You can disbelieve the other guy, but verify. Just work with facts. It's just a better way to argue. Additionally, use humor. And when I mean humor, I don't mean making fun of the other person. When I went to college, like everybody else, I took that introductory college psych course that taught me everything about what every adult I knew was doing, right? Like all of a sudden I was the most brilliant understander of human motivations and stuff because I took a 10-week or 13-week psych course. But one thing that came out of that course that has served me well for the rest of my life is a statement by Sigmund Freud that laughter is the non-aggressive release of hostility. Right? When I met a new client, I would always try to make them laugh and get them to relax. Because when people meet a salesperson, they're always defensive, right? They don't want to be sold. They want to buy. They're afraid that you're going to convince them to do something that is not in their best interest or do something that you want them to do. But if you could make them laugh, if you could find a place to get them to release, you see their shoulders relax, you see their neck calm down, and then it becomes much easier to talk. And if you think back, I'll bet you can think of a situation in your life where you had the same thing, where you laughed and all of a sudden released some of the aggression. I will tell you, I remember having a manager who worked for me years ago who did something egregiously stupid. And I was yelling at him and he did something, he told me an excuse that if the excuse was right, was even worse than what I was yelling at him for. And when he told me that, I just burst out into laughter because it was just so dumb. And all of a sudden I was relaxed, and instead of being upset and yelling at him, I was just having the conversation that I needed to have with him. So bear that one in line. And then again, remember my argument with Mark, be willing to take it offline, be willing to have the conversation, seeing somebody, having a conversation with them, talking to them on the phone. You have a much bigger bandwidth when you're face to face with someone. And the more technology we put, the more difficult it becomes to communicate. We all talk better than we write for the most part, right? So if we can get to verbal as opposed to written, that's helping. And then if we actually have the opportunity to see them, we can make it better. Be willing to apologize if you were wrong. You know, when I was contacted by these people about this bad tenant we had who left the property and left a mess on the street, we weren't aware of it, you know, and as soon as we found out, we took care of it and thanked the people that pointed it out to us and apologized for not being aware of it. And it went really a long way. And do the right thing, because if you do the right thing for the other party, you will build trust. You know, and I think these are all good tips, both on and offline. But if you are the broker or you run a team, to be safe, you should join the minority of businesses and actually have a formal set of guidelines and policies. You should have at least a sample email policy that email communications are private and it's to be used for the association or for the business or for the company or for the team, and that email communication would be periodically monitored if you're providing the email. And if you need a sample social media policy, go to nar.realtor, Google social media uses policy, and NAR has templates for you right there. Or take a picture of this screen and the link is across the bottom, whatever works for you. And once you have those policies in place, it's very simple for you to come out and play. And now with our 5 and 10 minute, I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. And if not.
Okay, let me see what I can see here.
Okay.
Hey, Wendy, Jerry Johns.
Okay, Jerry John.
Hey, could you?
There we go. Can a receptionist not licensed at a brokerage share a company's Facebook post without the need to identify themselves as an employee of said company?
Well, yeah, because they're sharing it as some online identity, right? So they're sharing it on behalf of the company, I assume. We have a digital marketing person. Ours happens to be licensed, but we've had unlicensed people in that job, and they will post things for us as the company, but they're posting things that we've prepared. Okay. Right? No different than your receptionist handing a flyer to someone. Think of it like that.
Okay. Okay. This is just an FYI. It says you can't trust social media as an accurate news source. And I agree there 100% with that person.
Oh, me too.
Thank you for all your insight, one of the members says. And then we also want to know how many calories Kent Thompson has burned today. Kent,
Kent, how many calories have you burnt?
where is he?
In my
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
So 41 miles, 1,736 calories so far.
Oh, wow. That's
41
awesome.
miles.
That's why you're so skinny. There we go.
It was the motivation of the speaker, no question.
Well, thank you. I was doing this instead of being on my treadmill today. I've only got like 6 or 7 miles, so I'm not even. I'm embarrassed to be with you, Kent, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anything
Thank you.
else?
I learned a lot.
All right.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Good job, Kent.
That being
Awesome.
done.
Does anybody else have any more questions, or is everybody ready to shut it down? Are we all good?
All
Okay,
right.
we're gonna end it. Thank you all.
Have a wonderful evening. It was
You-
great
Thank
being
you
with
so much, Bill. It was awesome. And you
Yeah,
owe
thanks,
me
Bill.
you owe me an adult beverage.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not gonna forget it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.